Hey guys, John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of EO Fire, and you're listening to Bravepreneur Parents Academy with Balaji O.
Welcome to Bravepreneur Parents Academy, where the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs reveal their most defining childhood moments and share their legacy for raising brave little heroes who will grow up to change the world. And now, he still reads comic books under the blanket at bedtime. Please welcome your host, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and self-confessed geek dad, Balaji O. You know, like the hotel in Vegas? Yeah, no, that's really his name. Balaji O.
She's a lifetime educator, a former elementary principal, a former director of literacy in New York State public schools. She has a master's degree in reading and doctorate in educational leadership. This lady knows her stuff. Her work has been published in college textbooks, national journals, local family magazines. She is a sought-after speaker at conferences, both for parents and educator groups, and she is bringing her superpowers not only around the globe, but right into your household today. Please help me welcome the dynamic doctor of reading, Dr. Carroll.
Thank you for that awesome introduction, Balaji. That was great. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Dr. Colleen Carroll, this is a big, big treat. We're really happy to have you here today, and we want to get right into it because you and I had started talking and you were giving me so much good stuff. I was like, okay, just stop. I need to share this with the Bravepreneur Nation.
That's right. We had a great conversation.
First of all, Colleen, thank you for your service. How long did you work in the New York State public school system?
16 years. Put 16 years in.
Wonderful, wonderful. I can tell you, people in your profession, teaching, are not appreciated nearly enough. So please allow me to say thank you on behalf of all the parents listening right now.
Thank you very much.
So Colleen, what's the deal? Why aren't our kids reading?
Well, that's a great question, and there's a lot of answers to that question. I do think kids are reading, but I think we have struggling readers and we have disengaged readers, and we always have had them. I know a lot of folks blame technology, and I certainly think that there's an age of technology where we've transferred our time and have become distracted by video games and those things. But kids always struggled with reading and were always disengaged. So there are a subset of children that it doesn't come as easy to, and it just takes more practice for them to become better readers. And if they're not good readers right off the bat, just like with everything, kids are much less inclined to pick up a book if they're not good at it, right? So I know that when I tried playing golf, for example, I quit really fast because it did not come easy to me. So for the subset of children, and there's a good deal of them out there, that reading does not come to them quickly or fast or easily, they're not inclined to want to continue, and so they quit. And that's a lot of the reason why kids do not pick up a book or some kind of reading materials on their own.
This is interesting, Colleen, and I want to kind of maybe get into the mind of the parent or parents who might have struggling readers. Now, I have two sons. They are 8 and 5, and I can't remember exactly when they started reading, but at some point, especially with our first child, my wife and I, we couldn't help it. We would compare everybody else's kid. There was a yardstick to know, okay, how are we doing? How's our child doing? Okay, with the walking, with the talking, and then with the reading.
Right.
That was a very big milestone. At what point, at what age, Colleen, should parents maybe start to get a little bit concerned if their child hasn't started reading yet?
Well, children start reading at all different ages, just like children start walking, at all different ages in their younger years, obviously. But they don't all start to walk at the exact same time. And doctors would tell you, don't be too concerned if they're not walking when your neighbor's child is walking or when your first child started to walk. But certainly if your child is in elementary school, or if you're a homeschooler and it's around the age of 4 or 5, if you're doing a lot of work with them on letters and literacy and they're not picking up on it, then you might have more of a struggling reader on your hands. One thing I want to point out is it's rare to have a child with a serious reading disability. So although that does happen, a lot of parents get really worried if their child isn't reading well right away, and they think, oh my gosh, there must be a real reading disability like dyslexia or something else. And I just want to, I just want parents to, stay calm and not worry about that so much. They may just need more help or extra time or more time to develop and mature as a reader.
That is helpful. So you're telling me the sky is not falling.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate that.
Right.
Stay calm out there, parents. Now, kids are going to pick up some stuff naturally just through the process of being at daycare or watching Sesame Street or playing with the letters on the fridge.
That's right.
What are some of the kind of general things that parents can do to start that elementary level reading? How can we kind of assist them in building their confidence and their skills?
Right. Well, there's so many things you can do. And one of the things I want parents to be really aware of is that the work that I do not ask parents to be the primary reading teacher in their child's life. And that especially because most parents don't have the training. Certainly if you're a trained elementary school teacher or primary child specialist, you might have the training for that. And if you do, then certainly by all means, give it all you got. But parents are often concerned saying, well, I shouldn't be the one to help my child at home because I don't have any training. So I'll just read to them and let the teachers do the rest. And while reading aloud to them is fast is awesome. And one of the most important things you can do, you're right, the letters on the fridge or the letters, in the sand even, or games that have to do with letters and words, or my favorite recommendation, to be perfectly honest, is wordless books for kids who are really young.
Really?
Well, I'll tell you, yes, illustrated books without any words to really start off, because one of the things we want kids to get really comfortable with is holding a book in their hands, understanding that we turn the pages from right to left and we look at the pictures and the pictures tell a story, and that we can get really excited over the stories that are in a book, whether they have words or not. And so a lot of parents think they have got to rush to the library and take out books that have all these words, and then how do I teach kids how to read the words? And again, a parent is not a trained reading teacher. So start with wordless books and help your child tell the story that they see in the pictures, and get them understanding that a book tells a story and is fun and exciting, and you can use your imagination to determine what's going on, and play with the letters and name the letters. And then if your child is going into a school system, because I say that because a lot of parents that I work with homeschool. So then the parent is definitely a little bit more of the reading teacher, unless they've got some outside help there. But if a child is going into the school system, kindergarten and then into first grade, the teachers will be really doing the hardcore teaching of reading skills like phonics, right? And sound letter connections. But the parents should be doing all they can at home to help that and back that up. So whatever they're learning in school, if they're naming letters, and at the home, parents should be naming letters, and they can talk with the teachers and say, what are you doing and how can I support that at home? But picture books are easy, and they don't need to have any special skills there.
Wow. Okay. That's something new. I wouldn't have guessed that. So that's definitely helpful information. So let's advance maybe a couple of years beyond those early readers or beginning readers. Maybe the children are now in first grade, second grade, third grade, and Colleen, they're struggling at this point. It's now clear at this point that their peers have been reading maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years. Their teachers expect them to be able to read so they can do assignments, and the child is simply having a hard time. This can be very emotionally difficult for both the child and the parents. Could you talk about that scenario a little bit and what parents ought to do?
Sure. Well, usually in the case of, as you explained, a child is either having a problem with one of two things. They're either having a comprehension problem. In other words, they could read the words, but they don't understand what the words are telling them. So that's one problem they might be having. Or they might be having a fluency issue, which means they can't read the words. So they can't possibly comprehend because the words are not able to, be put together in their head. The letters together don't make words for them. Or if they do, they're really struggling on what it says. And a child might be still sounding out every letter, and it's tedious and exhausting for him or her. So I work with parents to help them get a handle on which problem is it. And, there's some very simple ways of telling. And once we hone in on which problem it is, then we go to work at how to solve that issue. And I have a lot of very easy strategies for parents to do at home to work on those on that particular issue. But you really got to figure out which one it is, because once you hone in on that, it gets a lot easier. So I'll give you an example of a strategy for each. So a strategy for fluency is modeling. So reading a illustrated book with words, but I always say illustrated books because the pictures help a child understand the story. So even if you have an older child, like a 4th or 5th grader, I say older because, by then it's comprehension is usually an issue. But if they're having a fluency issue in 4th or 5th grade, use illustrated books because there are some higher level illustrated books out there that are written at a more mature level. Not all illustrated books are written for young children. There's many out there written for kids in older elementary school, even into middle school. And so, but the pictures will help the story be told and will help the child both engage with the story and understand it. So then the modeling piece is a parent reading a page or reading a sentence even out loud to the child and have the child read that back to him or her, to the parent. And when you do that, the child can hear what the words should say and what they sound like. They kind of memorize it a little bit, and then they go back to the story and they read the words too, but they've already heard it once, so they're able to better read. And what you're doing is you're modeling, this is what a good fluent reader sounds like.
Colleen, let me interject there if I may. So one thing that my wife has been particularly good about doing is reading with our kids. She hasn't done it exactly as you've described, though. She would read one page, for example, and then have them read the next, or read one paragraph and help them read the next. You're suggesting that the child should actually reread the sentence that their parent has just read.
Absolutely. And that's the difference that when you have a struggling reader, they need more support. So what you're suggesting is the parent read, and then the child independently read the next page or paragraph. And when they're independently reading, they don't have the support of the parent having just read the same part. They're reading a new part, right? But when you have a struggling reader who's really challenged by fluency, in other words, they're unable to put the words together into a fluent sentence, or they're not even able to really say each word because the vocabulary is just maybe out of their reach. Obviously, you need to pick a book that's as on their level as you can get. But even still, some children just struggle, even with easier books. So your goal then is to what we call echo read. I read a sentence, you read that sentence back to me. I read the next sentence, you read that sentence back to me. And then the child hears the parent reading it and knows exactly what it should sound like, so that they can repeat it much more easily as they're reading it in the book, but they just heard it in their head. So that helps with fluency quite a bit.
Excellent.
Yeah. So a strategy for comprehension is, so now we have a child who can read the words. We call them word callers, and they're actually very tricky children because parents will hear their children being able to read. Their fluency is not an issue. They've got that down, but they can read an entire page, and you look at them and ask a question. So what did you just learn from the story, or what happened? And they can't answer you. That's very frustrating to a parent because they'll say, I just heard you read it. So fluency and comprehension are very different. So that child who is having trouble with comprehension, you want to, start with story or with maybe some easier plot lines. Anything that's too intricate is going to be more confusing to a child. Humor works great. So if I would recommend, find a funny story that your child can really engage with. You read it together so they can read it to you, but slow it down, and every page or so, talk about what happened. So, because if you wait till the end of the book, too much information has to be processed by that child. Even if the book is only, let's say, 12, 14 pages, so process it in smaller chunks. It's chunking, right? We know how to chunk things. Adults chunk things all the time. So chunk the material in the book into smaller bite-sized pieces for the child. And at relevant points in the story, ask or have a conversation about what's going on. And a parent might model the comprehension by saying, this part of the story makes me think about X, or this part of the story, I think the author meant for the character to, do Y. And then the child kind of has a starter and can add on that.
Yeah.
So they're not really left to their own devices to completely independently to figure out what's going on, but the parents sort of like give them a nudge, give them a push to understand what's going on. And what I really also suggest is that a parent pre-read the story, read that story once or twice before you have the child read it, and put little sticky notes on pages where good questions would come up. So you might put the question on a sticky note and flag it on a page. That way you don't have to, in the moment, figure out what to ask. But you've kind of like thought of a good question in advance. So when you and your child get to that page, you're like, oh yeah, I was wondering this question. And, you just give yourself a head start. Because again, we're all busy and then we don't want to rush this kind of really good work. So.
Very, very interesting. Now, Colleen, you kind of practice something called innovative reading. Where does this come into play? How is this helping these either struggling or disengaged kids?
Sure. Well, so Innovative Reading is the name of my company, and I chose that name because I feel like what I do is a bit out of the box. I ask parents to only give themselves 10 minutes a night. So certainly they can go longer with their child, but most conventional thinking is that I need more time. If I don't have an hour or more a night to spend with my child, I'm not going to be successful or effective. And so the innovative approach is to say, no, you need consistency, but you don't need much more than 10 minutes a night. If you can really focus for 10 minutes a night, you can make amazing progress with your child. Also, I don't mandate that parents just use books. In fact, another innovative component of what we do is to look outside of the book and use things like magazines and graphic novels and comic books and all the different books in technology like a Kindle, and trying to get children to read in ways that are innovative, that are more tech focused or sort of 21st century, and parents are not used to necessarily all those strategies because they didn't have them when they were growing up. And a lot of folks also don't believe that if they're reading a comic book, they're really reading.
Right.
But of course, we know that if you actually see a child engage with a comic book, one that they really enjoy, you'd say, wow, they really are reading. And not only that, but boy, I guess they could like reading. Because that comic book will have engaged them and drawn them in. So my innovative techniques are to kind of go to the sources that will engage the child and make them passionate about both reading and the subject area that they're reading about. And then we can bring back some of more of the conventional approaches, like reading longer books and doing research and things like that. But we've got to get them in a way, we have to hook the child first and find what they're passionate about. I also like to use media, so if a child is really uninterested in reading, well, let's find a movie that he or she really wants to watch that has a book that's written about it. You get the child to watch the movie or the show, if it's a TV show, right? And then it's much easier to bring them around to reading that book. You can do things like, well, let's see what's different between the movie and the book, or how are the characters in the book different than in the movie, or how does the author describe the character? And often you'll find even things down to the hair color of a character will be different in the book and the movie, and children love trying to point that out and saying something is wrong. The author is wrong because he's got brown hair in the movie. Right. And just finding ways like that to get kids really engaged in reading. And I've got a whole bunch of tricks, and that's the innovative part of it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Let me ask, Colleen, you mentioned 10 minutes a night being sufficient, putting a focus more on consistency than anything else. What kind of stuff would the parent be doing? Would the parent be reading to the child, or would the child be reading?
Yep. Well, there's lots of different things you can do. All of the above, both, other things as well. But it goes back to those two examples I gave earlier. If you kind of have to know, and I work with parents to figure out what the issue is, and then we hone in on that issue, and then I give them strategies that they can do in 10 minutes. So sometimes it involves, reading an illustrated book and working on a fluency strategy. Sometimes it involves having the child read alone if they're at that point where they can, but bringing them back for a 10-minute conversation about what they read and a check-in. Right. So that's if a child's a little bit more independent. So I have ebooks out also, one on comprehension and one on fluency on my website. And the whole basis of the ebook are bunches of strategies that you can do in only 10 minutes a night that make it effective. So there's a collection of them out there. And that's the goal. Is it's really more important that parents be consistent than it is that they have large chunks of time. And that's kind of, you think about it, anything that you do in life, if you do it consistently, you'll be much more effective at it than if you do it for an hour one week and then don't do it for a week, right? And then a week later, you give it another hour, but then you take 6 days off where you don't even think about it. And so I find a lot of parents frustrated because they're thinking, I've got to put in tons of time. And so that sort of makes sense because you think of reading as this large, unattainable, maybe, object or skill that your child is struggling with. And I can't do it unless I have a lot of time. And it's really the opposite that's true. The other thing is a struggling or disengaged reader does not want you to spend an hour with that reading. So, you'll turn them off. You are much better off giving them a short snippet and then saying, great, go play. And if they start to associate reading with something fun, like play right afterwards, right? Then that 10 minutes will fly by and they'll be ready for 10 more minutes the next night because they know that it's connected to something fun. And it's only going to be short-lived. And anyone can live through 10 minutes of something they're not interested in. And you're going to work on them slowly, getting them more and more interested until maybe you are working up to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So I'm not saying that you don't give it more than 10 minutes, but I'm saying that 10 minutes is an awesome amount of time to do an effective job, to find success in reading for your child, and to get them engaged and motivated to read more.
I love this. This is really, really good stuff. And we talked a little bit about technology earlier, and you've made the case that technology isn't necessarily bad or the reason that kids aren't reading a lot. But say, for example, we have our kids riding in the car. There's a lot of transit time these days, not only because of going to and from school, but also extracurricular activities. Have you found some successful strategies, Colleen, for keeping our kids engaged in wanting to read during some of that transit time? What are some of the tricks to get them from continuously asking for the smartphone or for the iPad?
Right. Good point. Actually, in my free download on how to find 10 minutes, one of it is use your car time, use your doctor's office time, use the time that you have, that you can actually talk about a book. And I think a great strategy for that is if you get a child engaged in a book with you, so you're reading aloud to them maybe the night before, then use that car time to have a really great conversation about that book. Turn off the radio. Let's talk. Parents and children, let's use this time to engage over the story. And there's so many fantastic stories out there that lend themselves to really great what if kind of questions, what if scenarios that don't have a yes or no or right or wrong answer. What if the author decided to make the character a boy instead of a girl? Or what if, the author had this character, maybe be 5 years older? How might he have handled that scenario differently, right? Or what if this story happened in Hawaii instead of Alaska? How would that have changed the way, the people reacted to a scenario? Or how would that have changed their lifestyle? And get kids really thinking, deep, critical thinking questions, and have great conversations and get the whole family involved in it. Not only will it really engage them more in this next time they read, but will get them thinking about the book, which will increase their comprehension, so that if they're reading a chapter book, when they go back to the next chapter in the book, their comprehension will be much enhanced because they've had more think time on the subject area and the topic. So talking is my number one strategy. But also, why not use, if they're really connected to technology, why not give them a Kindle or, an ebook on a piece of technology? There's nothing wrong with that. You can read on any device, so I don't see a problem with that. I also personally really love audiobooks. I recommend to parents to get some audio books, like from Audible, for example, play them in the car, a chapter in the car, and get the same chapter book, and then read the next chapter at home. So listen to a chapter in the car, and then the next chapter you read at home, and go back and forth. And that way, the book is a lot shorter to read. So a disengaged or struggling reader only has to read half the book instead of the whole book, but will be really engaged in the story because they'll hear a great narrator's voice.
Yes.
And on that same topic, while I'm on that, that's a perfect example of modeling fluency. So if you have a child who's not reading fluently, they can have the book in the car with them, listen to the audio book, listen to the narrator reading the words, and they follow along in the book so that they hear good modeling of how those words should sound and what voice inflection sounds like, right? What it sounds like when there's a question mark at the end of a sentence or a period. It's different in the author's voice. So that's what the modeling is really good for. So there's a ton of ways you can make car time useful.
Love it. Love it. This is really, really good stuff. Okay, Colleen, you mentioned earlier you have a free ebook with a lot more of these really innovative methods. How can we get our hands on that?
Sure. Well, if you go to my website, which is innovativereading.com, you can sign up for my free newsletter where I talk about these strategies and more all the time. And then once you do that, you will get a free download that has got 3 activities you can do immediately with your struggling reader that I guarantee if you work on those 10 minutes a night, you will have success of reading. In 1 week, you will see a difference in your child. But in addition, I do have 2 other ebooks on my website. There's a price tag to those. They're not free, but those are really more in depth. But I am putting out a free webinar in the month of November, and I'll be talking about that in my blog on my website that parents can listen to. It'll be about an hour long with all kinds of free content. So I invite parents to check me out that way as well.
Very, very cool. I'm loving this stuff. We've been listening to Dr. Colleen Carroll, lifetime educator. You can tell. You can tell. She's been schooling me. I've been taking notes. She's a former elementary principal. Gosh, that is so amazing. Former teacher, former director of literacy, and now she is, I like to call her the dynamic doctor of reading.
Thank you.
She's bringing the innovative reading methods right into our homes. If you like what she shared in this short conversation, you're going to love what Dr. Colleen Carroll has to share in her ebooks. Before we let you go, Doc, what projects are you working on right now? What are you excited about right now? What's in the future for innovative reading?
Oh, gosh, I've got so many great things I'm working on. I'll tell you about 2, though, that I'm really excited about. One I mentioned already, the webinar. I'm new to the world of webinars, but they really excite me because I've found that I can reach so many more parents with so much free content and ways they can just immediately implement these strategies. So you can get 1,000 people on one webinar, and they can all be listening at the same time, asking you questions live. So I really plan on, in the months coming up, to put out some webinars for folks to engage in. But also, I'm starting something really interesting with a collaborator of mine who is an interior decorator. And it sounds like an odd combination, but I'll tell you,
it does.
But it makes sense because what I'm finding is that a lot of parents want information on how they can make their home a literate-friendly environment. Because one of the strategies that I tell parents all the time is immersion. You need to immerse your child in literacy, and your home has to, be literacy-friendly. And they want to know how to do that. And certainly it's easy, and it does not require a big expense. But there's a lot of different nooks and crannies of the home that you could work on that may not come to you naturally. I've created this over time. It's taken me many years to kind of come up with these ideas. And so I'm working with an interior decorator now, and we're putting out a support for parents that I will give all the strategies on the literacy aspect of it, and my interior decorator collaborator will give how to make that into a beautiful, place in your home. So therefore, you won't necessarily just throw a box of books in the corner, And there's going to be all different levels, everything from a very basic level where we can just do something very simple for you, all the way up to an extended level for parents who want us to go all the way. So really excited about that project. It's not on the website, but you can give me a call or email me about it. Parents can contact me and ask for details on that. I'd be more than happy to speak with them about it.
Amazing stuff. I love it. We got to ask you one more question. Doc, who's your favorite superhero?
Oh, gosh. Wonder Woman, of course.
Of course.
She can do anything. And I bet she was a good reader, too.
I bet she was a good reader. And on that note.
That was a trick question. You slid that in there. I wasn't expecting it.
You were quick on your feet.
Well, you know what? I used to watch
Doctor.
Wonder Woman growing up, so.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our time today.
This has been a lot of fun. We've been listening to Dr. Colleen Carroll of Innovative Reading. Go to innovativereading.com. Get that free ebook. I love the methods she shared in this conversation, and I want some more. So I'm going to find out what else she has to offer in the book, and I'll also be signing up for that webinar. Dr. Colleen Carroll, thanks once again. And to all of our parents out there, immerse your children in reading. It is the best habit in the world. This is Balaji O with the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. And until tomorrow, up, up, and away.
Thanks for supporting my dad's show. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to iTunes. He said hot chocolate is for closers. If you don't subscribe, I don't get hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate.
Fear not. Although this chapter of Bravepreneur Parents Academy has come to its conclusion, we have many more adventures for you and your brave little heroes. Head over to bravequest.me for access to the Brave Quest Journal, an interactive activity playbook that rewards your little ones with points for accomplishing tasks that build character and unleash your child's inner superhero all before bedtime. We look forward to having you join us for more adventures next time on Bravepreneur Parents Academy.